the starters will indeed play. Not a shocking breaking news, but it is confirmed that for a little while anyway, you're going to see Caleb Williams and company going against Patrick Mahomes and the crew, and then the only question left is Taylor Swift going? I mean, we don't have the answer to that, but we'll figure it out.
You know anything there, Brad?
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I would think it's a series or two. I'd be really surprised if starters were out there for more than two series. You got a long layoff with the way the schedule's set up now, reducing to 3 preseason games. So it's basically like a bye week the following weekend. So yeah, they figure they'd run them out there a little bit, and hopefully they can be productive with their opening drive like they were against Buffalo. If they go out and do that, they'll be done. I'd be stunned if they were back on the field, and then you're looking at guys that are potentially vying for spots on the back of the roster.
That would be a great way to finish the preseason for the Bears starting offense, and I think Braxton Jones will be part of that starting offense, Brad. But we heard from Theo Bennett that yesterday, who made quite a run, and I think he's had a very good training camp. Is he, in your mind, the clear-cut backup to Braxton Jones, or do you think that he is going to be in a battle for a roster spot?
Well, I think Theo's probably going to be on the roster. Like if he's as improved as they've suggested, then yeah, you're keeping him, right? Like he's earned.
I would think so.
A spot. Yeah. So I would think he's got a spot on the 53. Although it's a good question, but I think he's probably got a spot.
Brad, we obviously, there are all sorts of different quarterback issues breaking all over the NFL as people are naming quarterbacks. The Indianapolis Colts, for instance, have announced that Daniel Jones will be their starter. He signed a 1-year, $14 million contract, came over from Minnesota after starting with the 5 years with the Giants. When they benched him, he wanted to go, and they let him go to Minnesota. I don't know how big a deal it is, but it seems like almost a cautionary tale with a guy like Anthony Richardson. People are comparing it to the idea that Trey Lance is drafted with a high pick. When you take guys without a track record, you run into issues at that position, even if you believe that you can create a player where one may have some basic ideas behind him. Is it a bad idea to do that? Will teams be more reluctant now?
Yeah, you've got to be really careful taking a college quarterback very high in the draft, that guy that didn't play a long time in college. Anthony Richardson, I believe he started 13 games in school. Now, there's an exception to every rule and every tenet and things like that you look at and you say, well, you've absolutely got to follow this in the draft, because Cam Newton didn't have a whole lot of starting experience in college before the Carolina Panthers took him number one. Like, it was that one spectacular season at Auburn, basically. So there will always be exceptions, but I think with Richardson, it's the guy didn't play a ton. Trey Lance didn't play a ton in college, wasn't at a high level either, and it is a difficult place for guys to learn on the job when they're having to start in the National Football League without a lot of experience at the college ranks.
Brett, as we know, the Commanders have a running back in Brian Robinson Jr. that is serviceable, solid, not spectacular, but is in a contract dispute, making, I think, $3.2 million this year. teams maybe have called Washington about a deal. The Bears, I think we can agree, as you wrote in your mailbag on ChicagoTribune.com, might be best to wait it out to see if he's on the waiver wire, if he gets cut. Do you think they will call to find out what it would take to get Brian Robinson Jr.? How interested would you be if you're Ryan Poles?
I think he's just a guy, Dave. Like, Brian Robinson has had 3 seasons in Washington. He's yet to rush for 800 yards in a season. He's at like 4.1 yards a carry for his career. Like, he's got a little bit of name recognition. He's making like 3.4. I don't think he's going to be traded. I don't think anybody will trade for Brian Robinson for the right to pay him $3.4 million this season. In my mind, it's more likely probably gets released. And if that's the case, you can sign him for certainly less than $3.4 million. There's going to be a whole lot of running backs that are going to be unemployed by Tuesday afternoon when teams have to reduce the roster to 53. Like Robinson's just kind of a named guy. If the Bears, here's the deal. If the Bears, who had Hankins left the game with something Saturday night or Sunday night it was at Soldier Field, and Monangai didn't suit up, and Travis Homer wasn't in uniform. Like, the Bears have had some uniforms. If they felt like they had to get immediate help, knowing that they've got a preseason game coming up on Friday, so the turnaround's pretty quick, they would have had a tryout for running backs on Monday at House Hall. There was no tryout for running backs, so that tells me they feel like it's minor stuff for some of these guys, and that they're going to have enough players to go out and complete a preseason game without a lot of trouble.
Brad, as we look at where the Bears are at, you mentioned Cutdown Day is Tuesday coming up, a week from last Tuesday, the Tuesday after the final preseason game. I'm curious, will there be any surprises? I mean, we've talked about how easy the team is to cut, but the reality is I think they've got some injury issues at different spots that may come into play when they're trying to figure out their final cut downs.
Yeah, I don't see any surprise cuts. Like, surprise cuts gets thrown around every year.
Yeah.
And like, off the top of my head, the only surprise cut in the last decade is like Robbie Gould, right? The one where because for it to be a surprise,
well, that was a tough one.
It needs to be something that, like, holy smokes, that came out of left field, right? And if we kind of had a clue it's coming, it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah. I guess a big cut, maybe surprise. But, like, if Kieran Amagaji was cut, that'd be a big cut as a third-round pick. I don't think he's going to get cut. Yeah. I'm just saying something like that. That would be, where if you're cutting bait with a third-round pick after 1 year, that's a significant move, no question about it. A guy I wondered about back in the spring was Andrew Billings because I wasn't sure about the fit, right? Going from one defensive scheme to another. I don't think there's as much play time for him with the Dennis Allen defense, but they've been real positive about him. You can certainly understand the value he brings on early downs to help stop the run. So I think Billings is probably in a pretty good spot. So we'll have to see.
What do you think the situation will be at cornerback once Jalen Johnson, if he is going to return to practice and be ready for week 1? Is there competition for the spot opposite him because the way Nahshon Wright has played in this preseason, Tyreek Stevenson as well, now with Terrell Smith, that maybe clarifies things a little bit, but what do you expect at that position?
Yeah, I think that's one of the battles that I think is probably still ongoing. Like you talk about that left tackle situation. I think most people agree Braxton Jones is in the lead. To me, it's a little more uncertain what's going to happen at cornerback opposite Jaylen, because Wright is a guy who's gotten a long run with the starters. Like you go back to the spring and you show up, for OTAs and 25's out there with the ones again. Who's this guy again? Where is he from? But he was getting opportunities then in May. So that's not something that just started with training camp. And so I think that's real between him and Tyreek Stevenson, and we'll have to see where that goes.
We heard from Dennis Allen yesterday, obviously, and he talked about the practice against Buffalo and said that the number one thing is that we belonged on the field with those guys, said that it helped the confidence of the defense. They did force some takeaways. They've looked very aggressive. What is your opinion on how good this defense could be? And are they going to be leaning on it, especially early in the year?
Yeah, I'm real interested to see what this defense looks like when the games matter for real. And because you look at the schedule over the entire season, and they've got some fantastic quarterbacks that they're going to be going up against. So the challenges are going to be there. There's, how do they perform in this situation? They've got 8 sacks, I think, to this point through the 2 preseason games, and you can't really get into the stats too much. What we haven't seen a ton of is takeaways. You're going to want to see some of that, but I'm very interested because basically it's the same players as last year, right? You look at it, and there's for sure 2 new starters on that defense, and maybe it's 3 if Wright edges out Tyreek Stevenson. So you're talking about a unit that, as a whole, that was underwhelming a year ago with most all the guys back. Can it be a bunch better? Well, maybe they've got the right attitude right now. What we've seen in preseason has been pretty consistent. I think that they like the messaging and energy from Dennis Allen, and he's got a fantastic track record as a coordinator. So I'm interested to see if this group can be better, certainly better than I would have thought back in the spring, right? Before you're really seeing it out there on the grass. It could be much better than it was a year ago.
I'm interested in hearing Dio Adangbo's name because I don't think we've heard it much this preseason, Brad, and I don't know if it's a product of resting guys or because of his inactivity. I don't know what the Bears have in the guy they guaranteed the most money to in free agency. Do you?
Well, he's a fit for the scheme, right? You know that when you look at his athletic traits and his size and length and things of that nature. We haven't seen the starters for defense out on the field much in preseason, and in training camp, it's Caleb, right? And Ben Johnson. And so pretty much anything the defense does is somewhat secondary, or it has been anyway. He's shown up in the backfield a handful of times that I've seen during training camp practices. But yeah, like that's a guy that they bet pretty big on. Now, this is a short-term contract for him, right? It's a 3-year deal. Basically, the first 2 years of it are guaranteed. The Bears are hopeful that they are catching an ascending player coming into his prime in his 5th season, and whatever the best football is that he has to play, he's going to put on the field for them. But they need more consistent performance from that player that's going to be opposite Montez Sweat if they want this defense to take a big jump forward. And Sweat's a guy who I think he's had a really good camp, and that's one of those That's one of the many elements that goes completely overlooked in the crowd that is banging the drum for Trey Hendrickson or Micah Parsons.
I'm curious, Brad. You mentioned that Wright has a shot of starting over Stevenson. I'm just curious. We haven't gotten any official word yet on Terrell Smith. Could you potentially lose Stevenson if he's not starting? Do you know what I mean? Is he strong enough mentally to be able to lose his starting job and still be committed and ready and able to play and move into that spot? I know that is a loaded question, and I just wonder about his maturity level and how he would handle that.
Well, it better be, or with the new coaching staff, like if they got the sense that was an issue in an event where he is the backup, I don't think he'd be around much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they need him now because of what's going on.
They have to keep him.
I mean, they've got a little bit of depth there. Like I think Terrell Smith was probably going to be in an honest to goodness fight for a spot at that for a sixth spot at that cornerback position. Nick McLeod's a guy who they've used on the inside. They've used him on the outside. Terrell had, I talked to you guys about it last week. He had the best practice of anybody on the field against the Dolphins, 4 pass breakups that day. I think he made a play in the game against Miami as well. Yeah, he should have had a pick 6 and ended up dropping it. But that injury didn't look good. Hopefully, Ben Johnson's able to deliver some real positive news with Terrell's case a little bit later on the day at House Hall, but I would probably brace for bad news as it pertains to him. But I still think they've got solid depth at that cornerback position. They're going to need Jaylen to go out and play at the level he's been at the last couple seasons, and they're going to need to be better across from him as well.